Welcome everyone to BoomerWorks. My name is Shira Lotzar. I am pleased to be your co-host today for our terrific educational program, Transform Your Elevator Pitch into a Teaching Story. So we're delighted to have Vern Schellinger. I'm a longtime colleague and friend of mine. Vern is an expert networker. He is with a company called Contacts Count, which helps people to improve their networking strategies. He's also a career coach and just an overall great guy. And Vern today is going to help us to really improve our ability to expand upon your pitch, right? So hopefully some of you were able to watch Maggie Sterner's elevator pitch video that we attached to the program promotion as sort of a baseline for how to do your straight pitch. But Vern today is actually going to help us develop out the story, right? So to make something that's intriguing so that when people actually listen to you, they want to hear more, okay? So with that, I'm going to turn over to Vern and he's going to do his presentation. We're going to have either a breakout at the end, depending upon how many people we have, or we might just do some call outs because you're actually going to work on one of your stories today. If we want to make this pretty interactive, and I will, of course, will jump in as needed because I also love to network as well. So anyway, Vern, take it away.
All right, thanks so much, Shira. And I'm sure Shira will help me out because as I ask you to put some things in the chat, she can be checking that. And as we go through the presentation, I'm happy to be here today to present to you some of the work that I do with Contacts Count. My goal is really to introduce you to the concepts and have you see that these concepts, these skills, these behaviors are a way that can help you promote your business. And obviously that's critical to your success. In speaking to Shira, I know some of you maybe are at the different stages in starting your business. Some of you may be at the thinking stage, some of you may be just getting ready to launch, and some of you have already launched. Regardless of where you're at, again, the skills, the behaviors, the tools, and strategies I'll talk about will be helpful to you no matter which path you choose to pursue. So I'll be sharing a lot of information with you today, a lot of good information. However, as Albert Einstein said, learning is an experience. Everything else is just information. So all of this good information that I share with you today, you'll forget in a short period of time unless you make some effort to create a learning experience for yourself and really apply and practice and learn some of these skills and use them in marketing your business. So keep that in mind as we go through the session. So just a little bit about Contacts Count. We've had a singular focus for over 25 years. The company was formed by two sisters, and all of the work they've done has been focused solely on networking. They've done research, they've done interviews with people, they've created content, created blogs, created training materials, and all of that has been focused on networking and how can people learn how to network. Because along the way, what we found is some people don't like to network, some people find networking not so much fun. And the primary reason for that is because they actually don't know how to network. They don't know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. People have a brain freeze sometimes, and then they walk away and say, boy, I didn't do that very well. But it's because people are not prepared and they don't know the skills and behaviors. And so what Contacts Count has done over the years is catalog all of the skills, the behaviors, the tools, the strategies that really can make people effective at networking and building relationships. And again, networking is nothing more than having a conversation with another person. And you as business owners, as the chief marketing officer, you'll have a lot of conversations, and you want those conversations to be productive and effective. So with that said, our agenda today is pretty simple. I'm going to share with you a little bit about what networking is and what networking isn't. I'm going to take you through the 8 competencies we've developed for networking. It's going to be a very brief overview, but just so you have some idea of the depth of all of these skills and behaviors I'll be talking about. And then we're going to take, as Shira indicated, a deep dive into competency number 7, which is communicate your expertise. And that's where we're going to actually have you write a story and start to understand how easy it is to create a story, and then that make that part of your communications on a regular basis in conjunction with your elevator pitch, because your elevator pitch, as Shira alluded, that Maggie presented to you, that's a way to communicate your expertise. So this is a kind of a continuation of that, what you've already, the elevator pitch that you already learned. So in our most recent book, Strategic Connections, this is the definition that we've come up with for networking. And I want to give you just a moment to read this definition. So as you read the definition, I would guess that certain things stood out for you. First of all, networking is a deliberate process. And in that process of thinking about it, meeting someone, having a conversation, there's an exchange of information, resources, support, with the goal of creating a mutually beneficial relationship. I don't expect you to leave this webinar tonight with this definition memorized. However, there's a shorter definition that we've created that's easier to memorize and really gets to the heart of networking. And this I do encourage you to memorize. I encourage you to write this down right now. It's 2 short sentences. Are you ready? Networking is not about talking and taking. Networking is not about talking and taking. Networking is about teaching and giving. Networking is about teaching and giving. I encourage you to put that in your smartphone, put it on a 3x5 card, put it somewhere where it's convenient for you to see that on a regular basis and think about that. And you'll understand more about the logic as we go through this. So networking isn't about talking and taking. It's not manipulative. It's not one-sided. It's not for extroverts. It's not just for job hunters, sales professionals. It's not optional in today's workplace. It is about teaching and giving, teaching people what you're good at and interested in, and learning those same things about them. And when you think about an elevator pitch, what is the elevator pitch? It's teaching people, it's communicating to people what your business is about, what you're good at, the type of problems that you solve. Networking is lots of learned behaviors, as you'll see in a minute when we go through the 8 competencies. And it's really important to remember it's all you do in terms of building relationships on a daily basis. It's not just going to networking events. In fact, I would say that master networkers probably don't spend more than 10, 20% of their networking time in networking events. It's actually more one-on-one conversations that you have with people every single day. So here's going to be a quick run through of these 8 competencies. Write any questions that might pop into your head into the chat. I'll take a few minutes after we've gone through these 8 competencies to answer any questions you had. So committing to a new networker identity. This is really about teaching and giving. This is kind of the foundational first principle, first competency. You've got to have a robust networking identity. Your networker identity is the story that you tell yourself about how the role that networking plays in your life. And without having that type of mindset as you approach networking every day, it's hard to be a master networker. Taking a strategic approach is pretty simple. It's all about return on investment. You spend time, you spend money sometimes at networking events or going to conferences, and you want to make sure that you're making the best use and being as effective as possible whenever you choose to network and wherever you are networking. Envision your ideal network is about the 4 networks we have in our lives. We have a work net, we have an org net, we have a pro net, a professional network. We have a life net, which is basically your family and friends. What we find is that most people don't leverage those networks to their advantage. Often your family and friends are kind of forgotten in this whole networking scheme of things. Most people don't talk to their family and friends about their job if they're in a job search. And maybe some of you aren't talking about to your family and friends about your business and what you're trying to accomplish, but you should be. Developing trusting relationships is about the actual conversations that you're having, what you're saying, when you're saying it, how you're saying it. And it's also about where you are in terms of building a relationship with this person. Is this your first meeting, or is it your 3rd meeting, or is it your 6th meeting? And what you say and how you say it changes over time based on where you are, as I said, in the development of that relationship. Increasing your social acumen is something that covers a whole range of things, everything from actually learning ways to remember people's names to those awkward, difficult situations that we run into where we need to manage them, we need to end them as quickly as possible and handle some of those types of situations. And the next 2 competencies, deepen interactions, communicate your expertise, really are the core of teaching and giving. Deepening interactions is about engaging others in conversation, asking them questions to help learn about who they are, what they're good at, and everything about them. And the more you know about them, the greater likelihood you'll be able to give back or help them in some way. And communicate your expertise is, again, as we've already mentioned, you're communicating, you're teaching your expertise to others. So again, the logic here is pretty simple. The more that I know about who you are, what you're good at, what you like, what you don't like, what your passions are, what your challenges are, what your business is all about, the types of problems you solve, where your business is headed, the more I know about that, the greater likelihood I'll be able to help you or give back in some way. And then last but not least, people who really develop broad, diverse networks are able to use their own networking skills and their network itself to create new value. That could be within a regular organization, or it could be within your business itself. So I want to stop there and share any immediate questions in the chat box. Well, are you muted? I can't hear you.
Nothing in the chat yet, but I just had a logistical note. You'll notice, of course, these 2 slides are very, very small. Sorry about that. That's just kind of how it had to be formatted. But however, on our BoomerWorks site, we will have this PowerPoint as not only as a video, but also as a download. So when you open it up in your computer, right, you can expand out and hear a little bit more.
Okay. So as we said, we're going to take a deep dive into competency number 7, which is communicating your expertise. And in the context count approach, we have a number of skills and behaviors. The 2 that are most common when you're networking is, how do you answer the what do you do question? And most people answer that with their title or their industry, and they miss an opportunity to teach someone about yourself. And so we basically say you need to create a 2-sentence answer to that. You tell the person in the first sentence something about what you do, your talent, your skill, your expertise. And in the second sentence, you give an example. We call it a testimonial of when you actually use that skill. And I actually want to read from you something that Maggie put together, because in her elevator speech, she actually had one of these best test answers kind of right in the elevator pitch. She said in her work, in her example, her personal example, She said, I guide small businesses, coaches, consultants, creatives, healers, and the woo-woo crowd to choose a niche. And then I find simple words to describe what they do. So basically there she's telling, communicating, teaching other people what she does best. She guides small business, she guides businesses. She finds simple words. And then the second part of that sentence was so that they become magnetic to their perfect clients. And isn't that where everyone would like to be if you have your own business? You're a magnet and people just are attracted to you left and right. So that's an example of a best test answer. And it's obviously the elevator pitch is much more of an expanded way to communicate your expertise. The second way to communicate your expertise is through a story. And I'm going to actually read to you a story. This is an actual story the CEO of Contacts Count had with a colleague. And as I read this story, jot down, what did you learn about Lynn as you're hearing this story? What stood out for you? So here we go. Well, I have to tell you, so that Lynn's colleague said, so what's new with you? And that's kind of a cue, what's new with you? That's an opportunity to tell them a story, tell them something that's happening in your business, in your life right now. Well, I have to tell you about a really challenging training experience I had last week. When I walked into the hotel conference room in Seattle, where I was going to teach a 3-day skill negotiation course, I was so happy that it had floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the bay. But within the first hour, I realized everybody, including me, couldn't take their eyes off the water. I could feel the longing to be out there. So that night, I negotiated with the boat company that takes people to Victoria and back. For the next 2 days, we had our class on the boat. People were so grateful to be on the water that they worked very hard, had a successful learning experience, and enjoyed their breaks and lunch strolling around the boat. So that took less than 60 seconds. So these stories don't have to, in fact, a story of 5 to 10 minutes is not a good story. You'll probably lose the person you're talking to. So what did you learn? What stood out for you?
Go ahead and open your mics since we don't have that many folks.
Okay.
One thing you learned about Lynn.
Well, I think that she's very intuitive and pays attention to her group and was able to then immediately recognize what would make a successful class and environment, and she gave it to them.
Anybody else?
The risk taker and very innovative.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you might have said she's creative, she's a problem solver, similar to what both of you have already said. She pays attention to the quality of the environment, the training that she's doing. She's flexible, she's fun to be with. I mean, there's a lot of things you can learn in a very short period of time. Now, what Lynn did was actually use what we call a 5-step model, a 5S model, to actually tell that story. And I'm going to display that for you now and just take a minute, take a moment and read through these 5 S's. So let me read Lynn's story again. I'll do it in an abbreviated form, but I'll note each of these 5 S's as I'm going through it this time. So what's new with you? Segue. Well, I have to tell you about a really challenging training experience. Situation. When I walked into the hotel room, wall to ceiling windows. Snag. But within the first hour, I realized everybody was longing to be out on the water. Solution. So that night I negotiated with the boat company. Significance. People were so grateful to be on the water. They worked hard, had a successful learning experience. So again, it's really 5 simple sentences, maybe 6 sentences to describe and put together a story that the outcome of which is something that it's a result. You've had an impact. You've created value, and obviously that's what you're trying to do in whatever your business is. As a business owner, you're providing a service. You're providing a product that is of value to your customers, and you want the more people that know about your product and services, the greater likelihood that you might get a referral, or you might actually get a client based on a story you tell. Now, one of the ways that that this may happen for you is, again, is when, if you've told your elevator pitch to different people and they've asked you some questions about it, and you're talking to someone, try to understand as much as you can about their problem, and then you might create a story that goes something like this. Let me find out where I wrote this here. I'm sorry. The segue would be something, well, this is something very similar to a client I recently worked with. Then you describe the situation, the snag, you describe the problem the client was having, a solution, what you did to help the client, the services you provided, and then the significance, the outcome, the impact, how the client was better, how much the client liked what you did with them, whether in terms of the service or the product that you provided. So let me ask the group.
Actually, Vern, is it okay if I knew I was going to jump in here and there?
Yep.
I actually have a story to share. It's one that I share often.
Okay.
As some of you might know, I have multiple practice areas, one of which is career coaching. By the way, this is the transition to my story. And so I'd like to share with you the story because I think it actually kind of goes through this model. I never crafted it that way, but I think that it does. So the scene is that I had a coaching client once who was he wanted to become a recovering attorney, right? He was an attorney, didn't want to be an attorney anymore. And he didn't know what he wanted to be when he grew up, right? So we did a coaching exercise and figured out that he didn't want to be an attorney. What do you want to be? A writer. So how do you transition an attorney to being a writer? So what I did was I went through his resume and I found every single writing competency that I could find to pull out and make sure that his resume now was transformed from being an attorney resume to looking like a writer type of resume. Then I went into LinkedIn and crafted a whole new about section, used to be called the summary section. And we talked about, we highlighted, right, why he likes to write, the kind of style he likes to write, everything about writing. And what happened? He ended up becoming a journalist with a legal trade publication. So he was able to completely transform his career, all because we ended up doing a rebranding exercise. So there you go.
There you go. So a couple of other things about stories. Why do you think stories are so important? Again, anybody have some ideas about that?
Well, stories trigger many times an emotional response.
Exactly. That's one of the key things about stories. Other thoughts?
They're much more interesting to listen to.
That's right. They're interesting to listen to. They trigger an emotional response. And because they're more interesting to listen to, stories stick. A really good story, people will remember and they will repeat it to other people. And again, if you're in business and you've told a really great story to a potential client and they're having a conversation with their friend the next day, they might repeat that story. Wow, I just met this coach yesterday who told me, about what she does, and now they're repeating your story. The other part, and this gets a little technical, but stories actually trigger the parts in the brain that are focused on adapting to change, being open to something new, something different. So that's another reason why stories are so powerful.
They also are very visual, so we can really grasp the imagery.
Yes, yes,
I mean, everything you said today, I can visualize that boat.
that's right. That's right.
It's like a verbal movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to add something to this. Story gives you validity.
Absolutely.
I was on a call today and it was on men's health. And one of the presenters told about his particular family issues in terms of health, his father and so forth. And then he proceeded with his presentation. But I listened probably better than I would be had he just simply recited facts and statistics.
Yeah.
So there was a validation that he himself had been through this, been through the struggles, and now he's trying to be part of that solution.
Yeah. Great example. Yeah.
We could also share that stories are, even in networking situations, are even more powerful when you know that the story is going to relate to the hearer. Okay. So if somebody says what's going on, I mean, yes, you can share a story, but if you actually start by asking the other person what's going on, right? And you find out from them what their pain points and challenges are, when the conversation flips to you and you're asked about a story, if you relate a story to their particular situation, it rounds the whole thing out. So for example, the story that I just shared, I've shared it 100 times, but I typically only share it with somebody who's saying to me, hey, Shira, I want to become a career changer. How can I do that? And I say, well, here's an example of how that's done, right? I wouldn't share it with somebody who didn't care. I only share it with somebody whose pain point that I'm addressing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of different cues that when you create a great story, you're listening, for the right time to tell that story. And as Shira said in that example, she's right. She just wouldn't tell that story to anyone, but, and that's why, and so again, that's the teaching and giving. In other words, this person asked Shira about, I want to make a career change. And Shira shared a story where if I was that person, she's teaching me about what she does, her expertise. And again, that's simply marketing and promoting yourself and to a potential client.
And by the way, without fail, every single time I tell that story to a potential career changer, every single time at the end of the story, they go, wow, like actually resonant, like I get a verbal reaction because it literally spoke to their need.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when Shira says it spoke to their needs. When someone says they want to change their career, Shira's had certainly, years of experience and she knows she's put that story together. If you're not exactly sure when you're talking to someone, again, ask them questions about their situation. Try to understand. The more you understand about their situation, what their pain point is, what they're struggling with, what their problems are, and you get that information, then that may be the segue for you to tell a story that resonates with that particular person, just as Shira said in her example. And every time she tells it, people go, wow. So she, that's the type of thing you can do with stories. So where do you think you'll find some stories? Where would you, if you're going to, because in a few minutes, you're going to start to create your own story. Where are you going to find the information to put this story together?
And when Vern asked that question, I want, especially those of you, and I know a lot of you on this call are either just conceptualizing a new business, just you're in the ruminating stages, right? Maybe you've launched where you might not actually have any clients yet. Okay, so this is especially for all of you. So again, Vern's question is, where would you find these stories? How about your past work experience? Right? I mean, think about it for a second. Whether you're a W-2 employee or whether you're 1099 or you have a small business, you are still being, here we go, hired by somebody or an organization to solve their business problems or their personal problems, whatever. Somebody's hiring you to do something. So even if you spent the last 30 or years, okay, in a W-2 setting, you have solved problems, right? That actually means that those were your internal, ready, clients, okay? In fact, a lot of organizations actually say that, internal clients. It's the same thing, they're clients. There's external clients, there's internal clients, it's all a client, okay? And so if you think about it from that perspective, when did you solve somebody's problem? You've solved thousands of problems in the course of your life. Can you then extract any of those problem-solving moments to relate it to what you want to do now? Now, for some of you, when you're making your W-2 to 1099 small business transition, you are, a lot of you actually are literally going from one to the other. Like, so you were, I don't know, you were an accountant or you're a CFO, right? And you're in your W-2 job, and now you want to become an outsourced accountant. Some of you are making very seamless transitions. So it's going to be a little easier for you. Some of you are going completely 180 degrees, right? Something that you haven't done before. It could be, I don't know, maybe you want to, do an arts and crafts, or I think we have a person on this call who wants to go into some sort of, tech world, but never done that before. So, but even so, there's something about this new profession, this new self-employment situation that's making you feel like you can do it. What is it? What is it about this new profession, this new self-employment profession that's making you feel like, yeah, I can? So we had a person on this call a number of months ago, and I think that she wanted to sell like antique jewelry. Well, guess what? She's actually an antique. She collects it as a hobby, and she has all these different pieces, and she has stories around the pieces. We have somebody else who does. She's starting a business in couture flower arrangements. Again, she did it as a hobby. If you did it as a hobby, great. There's still stories within it. Okay. There's some reason, even if you're getting trained up into something new, you want to go into, again, the tech world, let's say, there's still a story there. Maybe it's in your classwork. It's in your learning. There's always some anchor. There's a reason why you want to transition into this type of self-employment. That means you have a skill, whether it's you acquired it personally, professionally, a competency that you have, a way of thinking that you have. It might be that you're a very mission-driven person and you're trying to transition into a more, mission-driven world. There's a reason why you're doing that. Think of the reason and anchor it to some sort of story. Maybe it was because of the way you were raised, and all, here's 30 years later, you were raised, I don't know, maybe I know of a woman who was raised as, she was in the foster system. And she went through all of the legal challenges, right, as a child, and being bounced around. Well, and later on in life, she decided to become a pro bono attorney for a legal aid service. Okay, that's part of her story. So where is your story coming from? Doesn't necessarily have to be a client, but it needs to be real and meaningful so that somebody else relates to it.
I would hope if and I'm sure that most of you is in making this decision to become self-employed, you've reached out to people and talked about this with other people. And that in itself is maybe it wasn't following the 5S formula exactly, but if somebody said, well, what's up with you, or what's new? Well, I'm thinking about getting into a new business, right. Starting a business for myself. The situation is, I've worked for all of these years and I've developed these skills, and I really think I can transfer these skills into a productive business, being a consultant, doing XYZ, whatever it is. Some of the challenges I'm having are these, but here's the ways that I'm looking at solving the problem. Maybe the other person has some suggestions for you as to how to solve the problem, or how to get you up to speed, or learn something about the tech world that you don't know that's going to be necessary for you. So there's just so many different ways that you can either tell a story and to help yourself, or tell a story to, again, prospective clients.
And just to bounce off of what Vern just said, so notice the way that he framed that story was, you're talking to somebody in your network, and the challenge is, well, here's my challenge in starting my business. Here's how I want to overcome it. Can you help me? That's one way to tell that kind of story to your network. The other way that you can do it just as effective is, hey, here's the new profession, the new business that I want to start. Here are the challenges I want to help my prospective clients overcome. Here's how I propose to solve those problems. And here's the benefit that I hope that they will receive. So there's two different ways you can go at it if you're just in exploratory mode.
And in Shira's example, after you do that, the next question I would ask, so what do you think about that?
Right.
You know, what do they have any insights for you? Do they, you know, they might say, wow, I think that's a great idea. I'd support that. I'd be your client. Well, then you're getting some market feedback that maybe you're on the right track here.
Or maybe you get a little pushback and it's okay.
Yeah.
Data points,
Yeah.
right?
Either way.
Feedback. And by the way, don't be turned off if somebody says, yeah, but it's one data point. It's
Yeah.
just one data point. Get a lot of different perspective. Now, if you start hearing a bunch of people say the same objection, okay, maybe start listening. But if it's just like a one-off, that's okay, you know, because maybe there's some nugget there that you can then repurpose and say, well, okay, I see why they had that objection. Well, maybe if I did this, then right. So you just use it as an iterative process whenever you hear feedback from people.
All right. Are we ready for people to actually write some stories here? So again, I would make sure that, and we've got this slide up, so you've got the 5, S's there. Do we want to let people work on their own for 5 minutes here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to that slide.
Do I have that slide up? Hold on. Yep. 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, actually, you want to go back for a second, Vern, and just explain that previous slide?
Look,
Oh, back up.
back.
Oh, you're going ahead. Yeah, one more back.
Yeah, there I am.
And then, yeah, to that one. Oh, one more forward.
One more forward, this one.
No, more, and then another one. That one. Okay.
Yeah.
Want to talk about this? Oh, wait, you flipped again.
I flipped again.
Yeah, go back one.
It says breakout.
Okay,
Isn't
one
that-
more back.
For some reason, my computer, when I use the mouse, I can go forward,
Oh,
and then I can go back.
there we go. That one. Just stick right there, right there. Can you
Okay.
talk to this?
Yeah, just, this is just you've got the 5S model, and then this is just it's the acronym success. And so as you're writing your story, you may not be able to hit every single one of these, but certainly the more of them you hit, the better your story is going to be. So, unique. Well, how unique is your story? You may not think it's that unique. Well, don't worry too much about that, but certainly it should be strategic, should be clear, concrete. If it can be exciting, if there is some, some way to make it exciting. Maybe it's because the problem you solved, the client was so excited that the problem was finally solved. Again, keep it short, and again, service oriented. It's got to be focused on that outcome, that significance, the result you achieved in using your skills and providing the services that you do in your business. So.
All right. So what we're going to do is actually, if you can go back up one slide to the segue to the
Yep.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
And keep it here. So what we'd like to do is give everybody 5 minutes. I know on Zoom 5 minutes feels like a long time. Okay, but if you're writing, I think it'll go quickly. I'm going to time you and go ahead and write your story out in this fashion. Okay, you've actually heard a couple of examples now. And then when we're done, we're going to have some call outs, right? We'll just have fun with it, and people will, hopefully have enough courage to share your story. And it's okay. Don't worry about it. Vernon always talks about the fact that, stories are going to sound a little, stilted at first, you're going to be reading from it. So it's okay. This is a safe space, and we just want to have some fun, figuring out, some interesting stories. Okay. So
In fact, I can't emphasize that enough. Just do your best to write this first draft. Just read it back to the group now maybe if you've got it kind of memorized, you can actually try it. But this is where people always have to start. Remember, Einstein said learning's an experience. This is a learning experience, and you're starting, and you keep at it, you tweak it, you get feedback, And the more you say it, the more comfortable you get, and it becomes second nature to you.
And Vern, we just had a request for it to flip to the next slide about the strategic
Okay.
slide.
Yep.
Okay. So you go ahead and take a picture of that one. All right. And so 5 minutes starts now. Okay, 5 minutes is up. So do we have a brave soul who would like to share their story with us? We can call on people. You may not be live in front of us, but we still see your name. Julie, I'm going to call on you, my friend. Ah, see, it's not. It's sometimes it doesn't work to your benefit to know the host. You're on mute. You are on mute, Julie. You just don't want to talk, huh? I can't hear you.
Okay. I didn't finish the end.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's what you got.
But
Okay.
I got the end. Okay. During the pandemic, I reached out to the executive director of a women's organization in Cameroon to explore their pain points and critical needs at that time. It was early on in the pandemic, and I learned from the director that women that she knew wanted to meet together in their village to share their pains, their challenges, particularly the psychological and the economic challenges. So the executive director and I created a space for them to do this online, but also to gather in person and interact with someone outside of their village, which would be me. The venue is under the trees, and by word of mouth, 2 women gathered together, 40 women to participate. They shared their pain of losing their businesses, their sewing, agriculture and dairy products, and increases in domestic violence and anxiety and fear of never making another income. And the outcome was really the opportunity for them to meet together, to share, and then create, afterwards, they created an action plan with the executive director for ongoing coaching and ongoing activity to get together to share and also help each other.
That's a great story, Julie.
So
That's a great story. I think all of us got the visual of that, right? So I have a
Yeah.
quick little question for you. What was your role in all of that?
oh, my role was creating it. Oh, good point. Helping to create the space to ask the questions. I worked out questions to have them answer, and just as a begin on each topic. So I worked out a few questions, not too many, very lean, on economic and psychological
Right. So to
challenges.
me, that's a huge point of your story, right? You don't want to bury the lead here, right? Because you not only created
Very
the safe space, you facilitated the dialogue, right? So you went right to the action, like,
Yes,
oh, this is all the
yes.
stuff that happened, but what did Julie do to make, oh, now I see that Julie is creative, Julie is a good facilitator, Julie is able to probe, right? Julie is able to create the experience. Now I envision you as somebody who can do that again, right?
And the partnership.
Yeah.
That's the other piece.
Yes.
It's just, from the internet, I met this, this person, and I reached out to her, and we started a relationship and a partnership. And then
Okay,
I
here
did,
you are.
following that, another.
Yeah. Now, Julie, the feedback, part of the feedback I give you, I think it's a great story. It just needs to be tightened up. And typically when people start these stories, they try to put too much into the story. So, the key point. So I think early on you said, it was part of the pandemic, and then you said it was early in the pandemic. Well, it doesn't matter where it was in the pandemic, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
and that's just
Simple.
normal. That's what we do. And it really takes some time when you start these stories to kind of, and everybody starts with 2 paragraphs, and you kind of chunk it down until you've just got a couple of sentences for each one of those 5 S's.
And think about what's most
Okay.
important, right? So for example, okay, it was important to mention as the pandemic because it contextualizes it. It was also important the fact that you proactively reached out to this woman. You basically cold called her, if you will. Okay. Right. So you were resourceful in that. That's huge. Right. You created the safe
Julie,
space. Yeah.
Julie, what was your motivation for reaching out?
Oh, I personally was having my own issues about wanting to have more experience doing facilitations. And I wanted to use the pandemic period for having opportunities to do a webinar and, you know, get my feet wet in the training and coaching and facilitating. I've already done some, but I wanted to do more.
Okay. And then,
So that was my key motivation, I guess. In terms of switching, you know, career from going from being program manager to training, advising, facilitating,
Yeah.
and coaching.
yeah, that might be, I mean, you might, someone says, what's new with you? Well, I've been thinking about changing my career. You know, I'm working on changing my career from program manager to, you know, coaching and facilitating. I recently reached out to someone in Cameroon, right? And then you tell the story about, and as Shira said, include your, you know, what you brought to the party. You developed the questions. You know, you created this you know, great outcome for those women.
Right. And it would be too much if I used other examples of what I did that year because it wouldn't be succinct. Because I did a similar thing in creating a virtual grandparenting webinar with my daughter.
Okay. Well, and
It was a similar
all right,
thing.
and here's what everybody should know about stories. You don't have to have just one story. You can have lots of stories. So, I mean, I can tell you stories from, you know, when I was a VP of HR. I can tell you stories from, you know, my networking since I've retired. You know, I have lots of stories to tell, and so you can too. And again, the more you do that, it's another way, again, to communicate your expertise.
But at the same time, isn't it too much to add into, you know?
Oh,
one
yeah. I would, again, you know, what you said, if the grandparent thing, that's a separate story. That's a whole
Yeah.
different story. And it would be, and again, it might depend on who you're talking to. You know,
Right.
And the other thing too is, you know, stories should be a conversation starter, right? It's not, obviously your goal is not to say story. It's a little overwhelming. But
right.
if you have this
Right.
one story, maybe somebody like me that's, oh, tell me more, right? What about that? I'm really interested in that piece. And then all of a sudden a dialogue emerges from that story. Now it might be that you have other stories in your arsenal in case you need one, in case it makes sense to insert a separate one, but otherwise you could let that story stand on its own.
Yep.
Right. That's great. That's really good input. Yeah, well, this is exactly true. And I think I'm going to go through my resume and pick out where I've done coaching and training and highlight. I have a lot of management and it's taking up too much of the CV.
Yeah.
When I want to go this other direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Laura, you're on mute.
Okay, that was really helpful. Thank you, Julie, for being brave. So I've been working on an intentional career pivot to pursue my passion of improving quality of care for people with involved disabilities. And I recently, well, it's been a while, I reached out to a national organization charged with moving people from nursing homes to homes in the community. And they were facing barriers to making that happen. And so I was able to partner with them and help to identify appropriate candidates and resources to facilitate the transitions of care. And what we did is we used those examples and created a system that helped develop a training program for all of the case managers responsible for doing this, and served as a advisor to them to help with some of the difficult transitions. And it really was exciting for me to be able to do that. And I would love to be able to do that on a larger scale.
All right.
And here's Oscar.
Again, the segue, it was this national organization situation. There were barriers to getting people from nursing homes to their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that was the situation. You found resources, and then you created a system, and for training managers to do this more effectively or efficiently.
Yes.
And what's the benefit to the actual patient, from a healthcare standpoint, to the individual?
Well, we moved people that were in nursing homes without equipment, fully dependent on nursing care, to moving home, getting their equipment and getting their home accessible, to being able to live at home with their family and in their community with some autonomy and self-determination.
Yeah. So I think that's got to be part of the story. I mean, that's a wonderful outcome from, everything that you did it's a great story, but I'd make sure I'd include that. And the significance of all of this is that the patients who were in a nursing home weren't close to their family, now are living at home. They've got more autonomy. They've got their equipment at home. And it's really, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's improved their quality of life to a great degree.
Mm-hmm. I'm writing notes. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
But my issue is, this was a long time ago for me. So when you're segueing to this, like, this was probably 12 or 13 years ago. So how do you discuss that, even though it wasn't current?
To me, I don't think it matters. A story is a story.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's all it depends on who you're talking to and what the situation is. But the fact that you did it 12 years ago, I mean, 12 years ago, it dramatically improved the quality of life for the patients. And again, so what you're communicating in that story is, you saw this problem, you used your skills and abilities to find the resources and had this tremendous outcome. Which, again, when you're telling a story, in that story, so it was 12 years ago, you have those same skills today, probably even in better, right? All you're doing is communicating to somebody, this is the type of things that I'm passionate about. Here's an example of why I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah,
and whether you say it was 12 years ago or not, I don't think it matters.
I don't think it does either, unless it actually adds to the story. So for example, you say, you know what, 12 years ago, I did X. Now here's the PS, here's the Paul Harvey rest of the story. Several years later, I found out that now it's a fuller story, but that's the only reason I would contextualize the date.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Laura, are you looking to target like home health care agencies to work for?
Maybe.
Because that would be a great story.
Yeah.
Because you were innovative and you solved the problem, and you're differentiating yourself from other people. So if I was a CEO of a home health care agency and I heard that, I said, wow, that's really, that's progressive. If that's you, if that was an interest on your part.
Yeah, it's complicated. And I can go into the weeds with you fast. Are you in that industry?
Oh, no. Years ago, I did some business development and marketing for a CEO of a home health care company in Leesburg.
Okay.
So when you said that, I thought, oh, that's great, because
the nursing homes don't want their patients to leave. That's part of the complication.
Yeah.
But the compassion and the innovative part of, whether it's a home healthcare company or another organization that reaches out and maybe helps the elderly.
Yeah, my real passion, and you help me just hone on it, is to make systems change so this becomes more prevalent and not one-offs.
Yeah.
One-off solutions.
Yeah. So to make the change easier for example, the family and maybe the elderly patient.
Right, but to change policy so this becomes the norm.
Oh, policy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, and the fact that the nursing homes don't like it, because obviously they're losing revenue, that change is here, change is constantly happening. And if you can come up with, and obviously it sounds like it's a much better solution for the patient, right? So that's nursing homes, that's an issue that they have, taxi cabs, are losing business because of Uber and Lyft. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right, who else has another story? Steve, I'm going to put you up at bat.
I had a longer one, but then I just kind of took the shorter, that's probably the shorter route. I worked for a company that was under SBA guidelines, Small Business Administration guidelines. So once you get past that size, then you're basically out of the program as being recognized as a small business. So by the government. So the business was calculating, basically you have to calculate your three years average revenue, and whatever that average is. If it's higher than the guideline, then you're out of the program, and obviously if it's lower, then you're still in it. Well, they were calculating it based on the wrong metric. They weren't using their tax returns, which is what you're supposed to use, and so they were, looking at it the wrong way, and I figured this out, knew it, and took a little convincing, had to show them in spreadsheets and all that. But once I did, then they started looking at it differently. And that's sometimes it takes, enlightenment to help company realize the issue.
So Steve, if I understood what you're saying is, this was a business that was under Small Business Administration. They were going to lose that designation, but they were looking at it the wrong way, using the wrong metrics. You stepped in and showed them the way, and now they were able to maintain Small Business Administration designation.
Well, yeah, they were able to. I guess that's the one thing I didn't say is they were able. They weren't out of it yet, but they were able to, based on the new foresight, start making sure that they had things in place should they get close to that limit or go over that limit. So it helped them be a little more strategic about their plan.
Okay. And so what's the outcome is what? What's the significance for them?
They were able to, so they were able to, when they bid, so this is a government contractor. So when they were going to bid on new contracts, then they could plan out what they're going to bid on and when, and so that way they can, if they wanted to stay there in that situation, and that keep within the program longer, they could plan out how they could do that.
Okay.
And still, yeah,
So this is an example of it's a work in progress. And I think there's a story there. You just need to think about it
Yeah.
from the standpoint of, as a small business, as a company that's under the small business, guidelines or rules and regulations, they have an advantage bidding on contracts, government contracts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And this was, I kind of just said this more off the cuff because I had written out another one and then I thought this was a better one, but I just didn't, I didn't write it down. I didn't write it out. So
Okay. All right.
think it out. But
right. Well, so again, in this story that we're talking about, I think it's important for the listener to understand that as a small business, with the small business designation, there's a benefit to being able to, there's a benefit when you are contracting with the government. Whatever, is the benefit you get some preferential treatment or something like that, right?
Yes.
Right. And so, the company could have lost that. And you came in and saved the day and helped them realize they could maintain it and still have this advantage of getting the preferential treatment going forward. Now, is that accurate? I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, it's relatively close. For the purposes of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So so if you continue to work on this story, just make sure you include in there when it comes to the solution and the significance. What were the skills? What did you specifically did you do to make them see, to make them understand that they could still keep this small business administration designation. Because again, it's about communicating your expertise in here. Obviously you help the company, but you want to make sure that the story has got your expertise, your skills. I know you mentioned, calculating, using metrics, figured it out, took a while, that type of thing. But I think that part's got to be more robust in your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was when I was, I have my own business now for the last year, but this was when I was an employee. So I didn't convey that, but I don't know that it's necessary for me to convey that.
Yeah.
Steve, just having come from that, well, not just, but a while ago, coming from that world, you're like a rock star then. If you were able to get them to still be in that program and the opportunities that afforded, for them to be able to get. So yeah, the fact that you knew your regulations, you knew the policy, you have an eye for detail, you spoke up, man, that's fantastic. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we'll see what they're doing now. I'm not there anymore, so we'll see. So hopefully they're still following.
What you did, but what you did.
I know. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Seriously, man, that's impressive.
Well, are you using some of those same skills in the business that you have now?
I believe so. Not necessarily as much on a regular basis because I don't have the client base necessarily the way I would ultimately want it to be. But where applicable, I do. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have? You said you've been in business for a year. Do you? What's the most successful outcome you've had with a client in this past year? Can that be a story? I would think it could be.
Well, I used this story over another one from this past year because there's so many companies out there that fall in as a small business that the story that I would have had within the last year was a little more specific. and to, you know, a little more specific situation. So it wouldn't apply as broadly. So that's why I felt like this was a better story from that
Okay.
perspective.
Yep. Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and do one more. Thank you for sharing that, Steve.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, who wants to go? And as you can see, I'm happy to call on people, so you can call on yourself first if you like.
Hi, I'd like to share. Sorry, my video isn't working.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay though?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right, so it's not necessarily a story about expertise, but it's a story that relates to a business that we've launched, and I think it's relatable, so I'll just share it and please tell me what you think. My husband and I have created a social media app that allows people to connect with others in their area who share their interests. So we're basically making it really easy to meet new people. My family and I, we've recently moved to the Charlotte area after living in the DC area for most of our lives. We don't know anyone in this area. We haven't had a chance to meet anyone new, thanks to quarantine life. It's been pretty isolating, and we'd love to have a community here that we can be a part of. And that's basically like the heart of our app, was to be able to make it easy for people in our situation, basically, who want to meet new people and maybe can't for whatever reason. So our app was recently launched, and we're working on sharing our app with as many people as possible so that people in our shoes won't have to feel isolated, and they can start to find and build community that they can thrive in.
Yeah, that sounds like a good story. I would, I'm trying to think of just reordering it in a way that where you talk about, you know, you made the move from DC to Charlotte.
Yes.
We didn't, you know, we didn't know anybody, and we thought about creating this app, and you know, so that people in situations like ours could find more. You could, again, you could put the pandemic in there, you know, that made it difficult for us to find people because of the pandemic. So we created this app. We've started to use it, it's worked, and now we've launched the app and we're really excited. That's a pretty good story.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, great. I'll reorder it. Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, part of why that story works well that way, the way that Vern just mentioned, is that you're setting the context, right? It's kind of like watching a movie. What the movie, when you watch a movie, it literally sets the scene. So in your case, the scene is, hey, my husband and I just relocated, right? So people are like, oh, okay, I'm with you now. Now, what was the problem?
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't find a community. Oh, what are you going to do about it? Oh, create an app, right? For people just like us, right? Because we felt like we kind of felt like we weren't the only ones experiencing this. We had the need, but it seemed like other people could benefit as well.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, you may want to say, sorry, Ron, you may want to even throw in the phrase, if you like, you know, they say that necessity is the mother of invention, right? So our need was this, so we invented this.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you could say that, you could also say something like, you know, we moved from DC to North Carolina, and you know how it's always difficult to meet, you know, new people when you move into a neighborhood. And on top of that, we had the pandemic, so it was almost impossible to meet people, right?
Right. Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah.
All right.
Good luck with the app.
Thank you.
Good idea. And this was decades ago, before probably the internet. But when my family moved to Arizona, they had a group called Welcome Wagon. And I guess families would register with Welcome Wagon, and they'd have regular events to get to know each other, to introduce families and kids and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Great idea.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. All right, Robert.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Again,
Um, I was working in the import business in Miami. We were bringing in fresh cut flowers from Latin America and distributing them to wholesalers all around the country. At the height of holiday season, February, one of our account managers sent an enormous shipment to one of the biggest clients in the country and one of the biggest clients for our customer. February 13th, that client called in and said that the majority of that shipment was not good. They were making a claim for a return of money.
Mhm.
Both of the company vice presidents asked me to fly to Houston to confirm the quality of the product, and most importantly, to save the company's relationship with that client. So that night, February 13th, I flew to Houston, went to their warehouse, inspected the product, apologized profusely. The next day, February 14th, I spent half the day touring the facilities, meeting everybody in the place, watching them make bouquets, watching their trucks leave, apologizing for everything, guaranteeing how we were going to make everything work out well in the future, maintaining a good relationship with the client. It worked out well. First of all, there is a market for roses which are not premium. We always call it the local market. You'll see these guys selling on the streets. And at the end of that conversations with these people, the floor manager there helped me to move that product into the Houston local market. Now, we did this on, a fraction of the normal cost, but the shipment was so large that it paid for my flight and my hotel and everything else. But most importantly, on behalf of that account manager, we saved the client. We saved the relationship. We kept doing business with them. So it was a tough loss for the company, but the goal of saving the client was met. So this is how I interact with clients, and this is how I try to do things for my company and for my colleagues.
All right. Good story, lots of good information. I would say you've got to make it a little bit shorter, but a clear, here was the situation, here was the snag, here's what I did, and we kept the client. I mean, that's clearly, you've got pretty all of those S's there. And again, make sure in terms of what you did, you're communicating your skills, and we save the account, we save the relationship with the client. So just make it just tighten it up a little bit. So any other thoughts on that, Shira?
Oh, I think that's exactly it. I was just going to say, great story.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
all right. We technically have another 10 minutes. So if anybody else wants to share, great. If otherwise, it sounds like we've gotten some really good examples for folks. And we can certainly wrap up early, but anybody else want to share a story?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Tony.
Sorry, I had some connectivity issues and I was late because I realized I was watching the YouTube video posted for this group. But anyway, I don't know, since I missed some of it, I'm not sure if my story would be of like the caliber, but I'm still wondering if I could get feedback
Sure.
on. Okay, thanks so much.
Sure.
So for me, I'm in transition right now. I was a doctor because of my strict family immigrant parents' wishes for me. And I just spent 30 years of my life living for someone else, but I fell deeper into despair and feeling like I was already dead. So I decided to make a change for myself, pursue my childhood dream of being an artist, a cartoonist. So, and a digital nomad, traveling all over the world, living nomadically. So I'm figuring it out still now, but it's been quite a journey, and I've really learned to trust myself and that there are no mistakes in life. So sorry, that was basically
Great. Vern, do you want to help her with the kind of the last two sections there around the?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd want to know, Tony, what what's the message that you're trying to communicate? That is it about you making a career change?
Oh, yes, sorry. So I guess the message is about how I feel like everyone should live, not should live, but everyone deserves to live true to themselves and their hearts, just to live authentically, that it doesn't matter what other people say or want for you. There are just to listen deep within yourself. So that's the message that I want to convey with my story. And I am passionate about helping other people directly as well. So I hold events. I have a blog. I even talk and mentor or coach people one-on-one as well, just to pass along this message.
Yeah. So in terms of the situation, you've got to, I don't know if you need to include as much detail about your parents, but maybe it's just the situation that you found yourself in. My career wasn't what I really wanted. And I wanted to make a career change, and I've started to make a career change. Here are the things I did. Well, I don't know what the snag was there though. Maybe the snag was you said you were living, you weren't living your life, you were living your parents' life, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then I guess that's got to be part of the story then. Yeah. And so, so the situation might be something like, I'm in the process of making a major transition. For the last 30 years, I've lived my parents' life. I haven't lived my life, and I've decided that I need to move forward. And then you said you've started to create blogs and help people make these transitions, and you can include in there, that somewhere you've got to include in there the important thing that you said. What's really important for you is for people to understand they just need to live their lives and not be, have someone else dictate to them who they should be, what they want to do, or something like that. And the significance is it's really transformed your life. And now I'm passionate about helping other people, follow this same path or work with people that have this same issue. That makes sense, Shira, to you?
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to make it relevant, right? Because it's interesting when you started telling your story, before you added the last piece around the fact that you want to help others, I thought it was just an interesting story. Wow, I was living my parents' dream. And then the rest of the story was going to be, okay, now here's my challenge in becoming an artist, right? Which would have been fine. That's totally would have been a legit story to just talk about your own experience. But the kicker here, the intrigue piece, right, was, no, I'm telling you this story because I'm not alone. How many people have spent the last 30 years, living somebody else's dream, having a career that's unfulfilling, right? And I'm one of those people, and I know that I'm not alone, and I want to inspire others to go and do likewise. All right, so that's a really, really important piece of the story to wrap it up. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so we're actually almost at time. So Vern, do you want to go ahead and flip to your last slides?
Yep.
We'll wrap up.
Last couple slides here. As soon as this session is over, you should do a little bit of reflection. What's one thing you learned today? And, can you commit to doing something differently in your conversations with others? Hopefully what you can commit to is actually beginning to practice and use stories as a regular part of communication. And as you're practicing with others, make it a safe place, okay, to begin with. Talk to people in your family or talk to people that, are your best friends and get their feedback and hone your stories. So another Albert Einstein quote, he said, "The world we've created is a product of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." So hopefully today I've had some impact on changing your thinking a little bit about networking and building relationships and using stories to as a key tool to promote your business. If you want to learn more about networking and you'd really want to take a deep dive into, these 8 competencies, we do have an online networking competency assessment. It does cost $40, but I'm happy to provide a free, no obligation, feedback session once you get your results. So you can contact me. The email is there, vern@contactscount. You can contact me about the NCA. And if you want to write out your stories and send them to me, I'm happy to provide some feedback. So you can email me your story at that same email address. And with that, thanks for being great participants. Thanks for getting out of your comfort zone and sharing some stories that I'm sure if you work on them, they'll become part of your ability to promote yourself and your business.
Thank you, Vern. This was great. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Big round of applause for Vern. All right, so if you want more, there is more. What I did not share in the beginning is that this is actually the beginning of what we're calling our summer networking series. And actually, Vern and I are doing this together. So each one of us is taking kind of the lead. So today it was Vern's turn. If you go to boomerworks.org and go to our meetups page, right, go to upcoming events, here was today's event. And what you'll find here at the bottom is this is our summer networking series. So we had today, then we'll have our normal growth group, which is on July 1st, which actually is, on any topic that you want. But then on July 15th, it's accessing your hidden in plain sight network. And then on August 12th, prioritizing your networking efforts. So you're going to have me and Vern all summer long. All right, so yay. So we are happy to work with you, partner with you to help you with your business development as it relates to boosting your networking skills, which is so important. All right. And if you would like to stay in touch with us, we do encourage you to again, go to boomworks.org, go to the join tab, join our community, just fill out a quick little form. We promise we will not spam you. We are just going to let you know twice monthly what our programs are. We have an educational program like this, and then followed by typically our growth group, which is our peer networking for all of you. So please stay in touch and connect with each other, right? Offline. It's always a good thing to keep this networking going, right? That's kind of part of why we do this, is to build community. So with that, we wish everyone a blessed evening, and we look forward to seeing you at a future BoomerWorks event.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.